Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Margaret Imprim. I'm the Capacity Building and Education Officer for the Youth Climate Council Ghana. Before we continue, I'd like to say that this is a very silent event, so you could have your headphones on. That would be really great. You wouldn't want any noise to interrupt, so just have your headphones on. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So to start with, we're here together as a global alliance for the Youth Climate Councils, and we're here to talk more about meaningful youth participation in Europe and beyond. And I'm here with some lovely representatives from YCC Denmark, Poland, Netherlands, Ghana, and Brazil. Before we start with everything, we'll go with an icebreaker. So there is a Slido. That will be on your screen. Just scan the code if that'll be okay. You have some questions to answer.
Just talk.
I hope we all see the questions though. All right. So I'm just going to start by introducing our lovely speakers. First person is Elise. Elise is from YCC Denmark. Next person is Kasia Smetek from YCC Poland. Next person is Sarah Wilter from YCC Netherlands. And we have Richard Mate from YCC Ghana and Sarah Darcy from YCC Brazil. So we're going to start by giving Elise a question. Before that, I'll just give a little intro about her. Elise is a member of the YC Denmark. She's also a climate activist and she represents the movement, which is part of the council. So Elise, your question is this. How does the work of the Youth Climate Council in Denmark look like? And how are you strengthening this meaningful youth engagement on the various national, regional, and local levels?
Yes, all right. So the way the Youth Climate Council works in Denmark is that it consists of 13 young people, and some of us represent organizations, different youth organizations. I, for instance, represent the Green Youth Movement, the climate activist movement. That's why I call myself a climate activist. But we also have other young people representing, for instance, the youth labor union and like young energy and youth nature and like organizations like that. And then we have some members who just represent themselves because they specialize in different parts of the green transition. Yes. And the way it works is that we have a lot of meetings and then we make recommendations for the climate minister, whom we meet twice a year. So we have 2 meetings with him annually. And then we host events for young people and hear what they have to say, their opinions, and we collect the points and incorporate it into our work with the recommendations. And we participate in the big conferences in Denmark. And then we also work with municipalities and helping them with creating local youth climate councils. So we actually have 98 municipalities in Denmark, and I think over 20 of them now have local youth climate councils. So a big part of our work goes with that, helping the municipalities creating local youth climate councils. So I think that also answers the second part of the question. We don't work regionally that much, but locally on the municipalities we do.
Great. It's really good to know that you're looking at it from the local level, from the municipality. And I think that's really good because from every municipality, there are lots of tiny, tiny organizations. And doing that, I believe, is going to be very, very effective. Thank you so much. We're going to move to our next speaker, Kasia, who is from YCC Poland. A little introduction about Kasia. Kasia Smetek is an initiator and a former president of the Polish Youth Climate Council. She has served as an Environmental Climate Pact ambassador and a member of the Youth Task Force of the European Climate Pact Secretariat. She has strengthened the voice of young people at multiple high-level meetings on climate and environment, including UNFCCC sessions. She was the president of the WUF11 Youth Council, coordinating youth engagement at the 11th session of the World Urban Forum. Kasia, who is online right now and can hear all of us, your question is, what has been the most important achievement of the Youth Climate Council in Poland? And what challenges have you encountered and how have you resolved them?
Thank you very much, Margaret, and it's very nice to be with you remotely. And yeah, the council was established in 2020 and it gathers 32 members. Currently, a few months ago, the new council actually started its new term, so I think it's also very, very exciting to have new people on board. And throughout these 2 years, I think the main achievement was that we successfully pushed for meaningful youth engagement. So within these 32 members that we have in the council, we are very, very different. So some people work on political, social aspects, but some people really work on, for example, energy, they work on climate per se, they work on very scientific background issues as well. So we had experts in every single discipline, and because of that, we proved that we are also professional, not only young, but we have a message to share, which is very concrete, very coherent, and also very beneficial for policymakers and decision makers. And I think the most important thing is that we pushed it through the constant cooperation with the ministry. So we were advising them and providing with our recommendations on daily basis. So we were in contact with specific departments of the ministry almost every single day. But we also met with the Minister of Climate and Energy at least every 3-4 months. So we also provided him and also herself later on with several recommendations and aspects to be considered in national policy. And also what I think is very, very important in Polish aspect is that we pushed for this youth engagement apart from the ministry that the council is part of, but also at the presidential level. So there is a council of the president of Poland on energy, environment and natural resources, and we have a youth representative there, and I have a pleasure to sit in this council as the only youth representative there, but we also have a youth council next to the president, and our former president also was able to sit in this council. So I think it's very, very important. And following your question also on challenges and how we can fight them, I think the main challenge that we faced was the fact that maybe it was a bit too politicized. So we were perceived as a political body, which is really not true. We are independent to the government, we are independent to any political party, and what is very, very important in also our context, majority of young people in the council, including myself, we are not part of any political parties. So we really represented young people, which is very, very important, I think, in our case. But also what is the most important is the fact that we tried always to reach out to other young people. We held various consultations. We always consulted young people from various groups, various levels of governance. We reached out to very local levels, to also small municipalities, to make sure that their voice is represented. And I think that's the most important. And I think the very last thing, how we can also fight these stereotypes and challenges that we encountered, was through education. So not only we educated about the council and how young people can get meaningfully engaged, but we also educated about climate. So as the council, and I think it would be the last point to finalize with my intervention, the main achievement of the council was actually leading to formal education in Poland. We were suggesting to the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Climate to actually have formal education in schools, and we are on a very, very good path now to actually have concrete lessons implemented to make sure that climate crisis is being taught in Polish schools.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kasia. So it's really enlightening to know that you're trying your best to help people understand the whole concept of the council, going beyond the political thing, and you trying to bring all youth voices together so that you let others know that it is very independent, and you doing your best to ensure that education goes all around is very commendable. I must say congrats to you and your team for that. We're moving to the next speaker, who is Sarah Welter, who is also online watching us right now. So, just a little introduction about Sarah. Sarah is the co founder of the Dutch Youth Environmental Council and student in environmental governance. So, Sarah, your question is, how do you engage young people on the ground? And how do you ensure that there is representativeness?
Yes, thank you, Margaret. And hello from the Netherlands. We could unfortunately not join you in Egypt, but we hope that the internet connection is good enough so you can follow me now. I'm from the Jongere Milieuraad, officially in Dutch, which is the Dutch Youth Environmental Council. And we structured our organization in such a way that every topic has its own focus group. So whether this is the marketing, communication, policy advising, or youth participation group, the strive for representativeness lays at its core. And I would be lying to you if I said that this is easy, because it is most definitely not, and we are also not there yet. But it is our responsibility to keep trying. And we do so by, for example, creating a website which turns policy advising into a game, making it more accessible for different age groups. We also do so by visiting schools here in our country and attempting to circle around the algorithms of social media, because as we all know, it's quite easy to get stuck in our own bubble there. But while doing so, as Kasia also mentioned, we strive to be apolitical, meaning that we don't take on a certain political stance, and we're also not activists. We base our advising on the input we receive through our activities, as long as they're, of course, based on scientific facts.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So, for what you're saying, like you said, it's not easy, but I like the way you're taking advantage of all digital tools to ensure that there is representative a number of youth wherever you are in the Netherlands. And I must say that's a really good one from your side. And yeah, I must commend you also for that. Good kudos to you and your team for that. Our next speaker is from Ghana, and in the person of Richard Mate. And Richard Mate is the coordinator of the Youth Climate Council Ghana. And as we know, Ghana is out of the EU. It's in the global south. So he will give a different perspective. Richard, your question is, how is the Youth Climate Council in Ghana different from those in the European Union? And what is your main focus? And how do you ensure that there is equal access to opportunities offered by the YCC? I will divide it if you want. I'll take it one by one if you want. The first one, how is the Youth Climate Council in Ghana different from those in the European Union?
Yeah, thank you very much, Margaret, for this question. From what the other speakers, my colleagues have shared, it looks like the Youth Climate Council in Europe is more government-led or are in bed with government. But for us in Ghana, the Youth Climate Council is led by young people and has no influence from government. Purposely because we don't want it to be politicized and hence have government put their own people, crop of young people, and another political party comes into office and says this or that, or be politicized or tagged by an opposition government. And so young people in Ghana are at the forefront. We have a secretariat that is independent, that have recruited young people to man it and also run the YCC in Ghana. The YCC in Ghana currently has about 1,600 young people registered, with over 100 youth organizations also registered with the YCC. And though we work with governments, we engage them to be part of our work, and they also invite us to be part of their work. And we serve as a liaison between the government and young people. And that's how the structure in Ghana works. And this structure has been very successful, or has helped us a lot, because it has made us an independent body. And therefore, no political party can say, oh, this YCC is in bed with this current administration or the previous one or anything. So whenever there will be a change of government, the YCC will still remain independent, void of any political interference or any political association.
All right. So, as the Youth Climate Council Ghana, what is your main focus? And how do you ensure that the opportunities offered by the YCC, there is equal access for all those opportunities?
All right, so our main focus as the YCC Ghana is to become the voice of young people when it comes to climate-related decision-making processes in the country. This is because we've seen a space in Ghana which has been polarized by a few young people who have access or opportunity. And so it has made the youth engagement with political actors and relevant bodies very difficult. But the YCC has become the voice of young people and have been accepted by, let me say, almost all young people in Ghana, because currently we are the largest group in the country with over 1,600 young people. And this is unprecedented. It has never happened in Ghana before. And so it shows the confidence young people have in the YCC as being a solely independent, non-polarized movement of young people. And so we are able to, mobilize a lot of youth and also put them together as one voice, as one people. And government relating to the YCC knows that all young people are involved. And with the YCC, we normally share the opportunities through our mailing list where everybody is on. When you sign up to the YCC, you join the mailing list, you become part of the YCC. So whatever opportunity that comes to YCC is shared to everyone, for everyone to apply. So it's not like those at the secretariat get to enjoy or benefit, or some people get to enjoy or benefit than others. Opportunities are shared equally, and we ensure that women get equal opportunity as the men as well. And even when you look at the secretariat, we have 2 males and 2 females, making the 4 staff running the secretariat. So gender issues are also very key when it comes to the work that the YCC does, so that we ensure that opportunities are shared abroad to everyone on the same scale.
Thank you so much. It's really comforting to know that in terms of access to opportunities, you do not just make it open, but you ensure that even within the staff, there is gender equality. And that is one thing I'll say which is very commendable from the YCC Ghana. And we hope that everyone would replicate that as they create their councils in every country. All right, so our next speaker is Sarah Darcy. She's from Brazil. A little introduction about Sarah. Sarah is a climate activist from Brazil who has been working with climate advocacy since 2017 as an international relations graduate student and later as a sustainability expert. She is a policy and research officer for the Youth Climate Council Brazil and a campaigner at Mercy for Animals, an international NGO focused on building a more sustainable and fair food system. In 2021, she joined the biggest sustainability training program from United People Global, being recognized as a sustainability leader, and she's also part of Yongo, co-leading El Koi Brazil 2022. Her main passion is advocating for CSO representation and effective participation in the decision-making processes for climate politics. Your question, Sarah. YCC Brazil has started on a city level in Sao Paulo. I'd like to know more about it. Can you just tell us more about it? And after that, there is more questions for you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, yeah, now okay. Thank you, Margaret. So, as you said, in Brazil, we have a different aspect of the YCC because, as you know, Brazil is a very large country, it's continental size. So we thought that it would be a good idea for us to start at a local level. And we chose the city of São Paulo because it's a city that has already historically been a protagonist in the climate agenda And also, we are currently under a federal government that doesn't have much space for civil society participation, so it wouldn't be possible for us to start with a national approach from scratch. So we thought that we could use what we have in the scenario that was starting at a local level and lobbying and advocating with legislators from São Paulo who already are more open to the climate agenda and have been leading some policies at a local level too.
Lovely. How important was experience sharing in terms of building up a council in your country? How important was that?
100% important. I think that we don't have in Brazil anything like a youth climate council. We do have many NGOs that are organized and working with climate and youth perspectives, but there is a lack of access, direct access to the government to understand what kind of policies we already have, what are the representatives that are using this agenda as their main focus, and also there is a lack of transparency sometimes to understand what has been implemented at a local level, but it's also at a national level. So we believe that having YCC can be this bridge between the civil society and the government to have this formal participation in the institutional politics. And this is very important because we work as this main access to the youth. So we are not there to share what we think, but we are there to get their opinions and recommendations and translate that to the government at a direct access. So this is what we are fighting for. And in this moment, we consider the council as a popular council because we are still not under the government like in institutionalized way. But that's the idea, so that we can have this full access to the information and to the contact.
So, how did successful examples of YCCs in the EU and even in Ghana help you as YCC Brazil?
Sure. I believe that the experience in Ghana is very similar to what we are experiencing in Brazil because it's this bottom-up strategy. So it was not the government itself that brought the idea of a council. It's civil society that started this movement, and now we are in this moment of trying to get more credibility and get this as institutionalized way. And also, I believe that having the experience from the other YCCs, we see that the public consultations is also a very good tool. And the YCCs can have this role of representing young people in a way that is more data-driven, that is more effective, that we can actually have information organized for the government and bring those recommendations in that way.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, if there are any questions on site and even off site, we're open to ask. If you just go on a Slido, our online participants can also ask their questions. So please feel free, if you're here as well, you have any question, you could as well, just let us know and we can just take your question right now. Okay, I see a question here. All right, so just scan this barcode. All right, the first question is, what have we learned from the Youth Climate Council since COP26? What can be done in the next year after COP27 with regard to climate resilience? So this is more of a two-in-one question. What have we learned? What have you as council members learned from the Youth Climate Council since COP26 in Glasgow? And what can be done in the next year after COP27 with regard to climate resilience? Who would like to take the first one? Anyone?
Maybe I can take the one what we learned after COP26.
Great.
I don't know if you can hear me. Perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, amazing. So, for example, in case of the Polish YCC, COP26 was really a turning point for us as well because For years, it was very, very difficult to get on governmental budgets for the UNFCCC processes and mainly for COP. So there is a very interesting fun fact. During COP in Katowice, in Poland, at COP24, there were no young people in the Polish delegation at all. Even the UN youth delegates, they were unfortunately said no to. They were declined the application to join the delegation because the government and the ministers said that young people cannot join the council because the delegation because unfortunately it's illegal and it's not possible on any basis of the law that it's there in Poland. So then, for the next year in Madrid at COP25, we didn't really believe that's true because we saw other young people in country delegations. We knew that it's possible to actually join the delegation, and we tried to lobby the government, even though there was not yet the Youth Climate Council in place. We tried to find the way. So at COP25, we already had 3 youth representatives in the delegation for lobbying, for actually giving them concrete examples. And last year, during COP26 in Glasgow, we had 8 young people in country delegation, which was very, very interesting because it was the highest number ever, as you can see, out of these 3 attempts, and like 25 other COPs before. So there has been the momentum, and we knew that COP26 was crucial in terms of the next steps, how we can actually keep this momentum on, and how we can make sure that young people can have the access to country delegation and how can they actually become a very, very concrete and meaningful part of the delegation. And it's very, very nice because we provided the negotiators with a report called Youth Negotiations Plans and our recommendations for the negotiations. So our negotiations, Polish negotiators, knew what is our point and what is our standpoint on various matters. They knew what is our perspective, and they were aware during drafting their perspective and their statements. So I think it's very, very important. And now we are also having very frequent meetings with the negotiators. We had a meeting last week just before COP as well to make sure that they know what they are actually negotiating for, that they are negotiating for our future. So I think this is what we learned since COP26 in terms of the Youth Climate Council, and we know that the risk of not getting young people to the delegation is very, very huge because, for example, now in case of Egypt, of course, it was difficult in terms of, for example, funding and the logistics because it was easy when COP was in Europe, when it was in Scotland, in Glasgow, but now seeing that it's in Egypt, seeing that next year it's going to be in United Arab Emirates, we face financial issues. So it's also the thing how we can learn from COP27 onwards, how to ensure that the finances are there also to support young people.
Wow. Thank you so much for attempting both questions. For the second one, what I'm getting is you're making sure that you put plans in place, financial plans in place. So if you're going to start maybe sending proposals, you can start doing that now, ahead of COP28, right? Great. Is there anyone who would like to add anything to the 2 questions? Anyone here can ask a question online.
Yeah, so just to add on to what has been said by my colleague, the case of Ghana is not far-fetched from what has been said because the YCC Ghana was launched, I think, 2 weeks before COP26, and at COP, we noticed how young people were part of government delegation and played active roles in other countries. And therefore, the YCC Ghana saw how meaningful these engagements were and also thought of supporting Ghanaian youth to also actively participate in international climate policy space. So after COP26, we held a post-COP consultations to seek the views of young people. We then went further to provide capacity building training sessions for young people on international climate policy. And we also came with the youth negotiator training program for young people, and we had 10 selected young people who have been trained. And we have 2 of them here in Egypt with the government of Ghana delegation, and they are with the team at the negotiation rooms, understanding them, and also providing the youth perspective of negotiations. And this shows how the YCC Ghana has provided support to young people. And also, we are hoping to, mobilize more finance to support a lot of young people. As I said earlier on, the YCC Ghana is not supported by the government of Ghana financially because we want to ensure that there is that independence. And so we hope to expand our financial scope to get more funding to be able to bring more young people to COP28 and also beyond. So this learning experience from COP26 has really helped us prior to Sharm-el-Sheikh, and we have 2 of our youth negotiator trainees here providing support. And so we hope to scale this up to bring more of them. We have 10 who have been trained, and the Minister of Environment has agreed for these trainees to be absorbed to be part of the negotiators of Ghana. And so, but we couldn't bring all the 10. We managed to bring 2 due to funding issues. So finance is key for us to be able to scale up our work, and therefore we are working hard to increase, to gain access to more finance to be able to push a lot of young people from Ghana to the climate negotiations at COP. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So what I'm getting from what Ghana is doing to ensure climate resilience is to ensure that the youth are part of the space, the political space. So in your case, there has been some negotiation trainings going on, which is really commendable. All right, if you could just, yeah.
So in the Danish case, since COP26, I think we had a lot of new members and old members going out. So it is a very new council now than it was at COP26. And we weren't here at COP26, and I'm the only representative here now. But maybe there will be more next year from the Danish Youth Climate Council. So we got a lot of new people with new energy and new ideas, which I think has been very, very good for the councils and its work. And what's going to happen until the next year? I think, like after COP27, I think the most important thing for us is to get a better collaboration with our government, because right now, for me at least, I don't know how I think it could have a lot of improvement. And I think we also had elections just right now. So I hope that the new climate minister also really wants to engage with us and use all the capacity and all our recommendations, all the very solid recommendations and demands that we make, that we can improve our collaboration and, get more influence in general. I hope that will happen until next year.
Great. So for your part of the world, you're hoping for more collaboration with the government as a form of climate resilience.
Yeah, I don't know about when you say it in that way, because we still have to be very independent. But right now, I think the problem is that we only have too few meetings, too little interrogation with the ministry, and then they, it's easier for them to ignore us. So, yeah, I hope that we will talk more with them, even though we still have to fight and be independent. Yeah, but it is a weird balance.
All right, great. We have a question here, so yeah.
Yes, hello, thanks. I'm Louise Ausmann. I'm working in the European Commission on the Africa-EU partnership and specifically on the youth engagement therein. I was wondering, how are the African and the European Youth Climate Councils connected at the moment, and in which areas do you see perhaps opportunity to connect more, to work more together, and what are maybe also the challenges for this?
All right. Over to all our 5 speakers. Anyone? Connection between the Global North, Global South Youth Climate Councils, the possibility and what are some of the challenges?
Okay, I can try. I can say some of it maybe. So the way we work together in these national youth climate councils is that we have this global alliance of youth climate councils, and we meet every second week or something on Google Meet, and talk about what's going on in the different councils, helping each other, sharing experiences, telling the others, okay, we have this problem right now. Have you tried this? What did you do about it? So we help each other, and then at the same time we plan things like this thing. So we're going to plan also events for the next UN summits, I think, looking forward. Yeah, so it's just this alliance club we have where we help each other.
So more of a global alliance where you have knowledge sharing, and you're able to identify your uniqueness, and realizing that the global north and global south are context specific. Right. Okay. Anyone would like to say
If I
anything
could-
to just
Yeah, if
add?
I could add something as well. I think what's very important in our alliance is the fact that without some of the councils, the other councils wouldn't be created. So, for example, without the Danish council, which was the first one in the world, there wouldn't be a Polish council, for example, because it was the Danish activists who shared the idea with me. Then I was able to work on the concept note and share it with the minister, who reached out to the minister in Denmark and asked him, hey, do you think it's actually working? How did you deal with confidentiality? How did you manage everything? There was a council in the Netherlands later on, so the Dutch minister was also of help. And then, because we were all in the one bubble, in the one space with colleagues from Brazil, from Ghana, we shared these experiences, and there were activists like, for example, Josh from Gaio, and he decided to also implement this example in Ghana, to get these excellent activists who are already on stage in Egypt now as well, and they decided to implement this context-specific council also in Africa. And then there was Sarah and Dia who decided to implement it on Ghana example in Brazil. So I think without this cooperation and without experience sharing, none of the councils would be created and would work that well, because we see also that if there are challenges in one of the councils, they are replicated in others. So if we discuss them and if we share our feedback on how to face them and how to solve them before they arrive, I think it's also very, very important for us, because we can just, get ahead of them. And I think the alliance is also a great step forward to also help other councils to get established. So there is something to stay tuned in. Next week we will also have an event, the launch of the toolkit on how to establish a youth climate council. So you are more than invited to come to the Youth Pavilion next Thursday, where we will actually launch a very practical comments and methods on how to have a council on your national level, with all of our experiences written down and also some recommendations. So I think it's also a very now easy step forward for young people, and also for policymakers, on how to make sure that this meaningful institutionalized participation of young people is there.
Lovely. So what I'm hearing from everything is that as a council being built in your country, you cannot assume you have all the answers. You need to rely on other people for answers. And maybe someone's mistake could be your solution. Maybe you could avoid it. Because at this time in climate change, it's very costly to make mistakes now. So it's very important to learn from others, and also identify how you can also improve what you're doing. So thank you so much from all the councils. Any question from anyone? And then we could move to the next poll. Any question from our online audience and on site? Okay. Oh, there is a question. Are there any plans to expand this alliance to Asia? Do we have any plans to expand this to Asia, people?
I'm not, an organizer or anything, so maybe someone knows stuff I don't. But I think one of the tasks we also have in the global alliance of youth climate councils is helping countries with establishing youth climate councils. And we hear things from different countries who reach out to us, and we also try to reach out to countries. And if the person who asked this question knows something and want help, we would be glad to help. And as Kasia also said, we have this session at the Youth Pavillion. Was it Thursday, maybe? Where we explain how to establish a youth climate council from the bottom, how you can do it if you're from civil society, how you can push your government. So, yeah, I would recommend to follow that event person who asked this question.
All right, great. And also know that everything is context specific. So maybe in Asia, you could identify what could work to pose as a youth movement in Asia. Once you identify what could work, once you also identify the possibilities of working things around and your possible limitations, then you could see how you can institutionalize this movement we're all looking forward to making it very independent. So I hope your question was answered. We're going to move to the next pool. And in there, I just want us to all express what is still missing in terms of youth meaningful participation in climate politics. So if you could just scan the code. What is still missing in terms of youth meaningful participation in climate politics? I see some responses. I think we will need some more. If you could still have the code shown so everyone can just scan and indicate their responses. All right. So I see clarity, platform, nuance. Clarity, platform, and nuance. Would our speakers like to speak a little bit about it? Do you agree with this? Do you think there is still missing clarity in terms of youth meaningful participation? Do you think we're still missing a platform? Do you think we're still missing a nuance in youth meaningful participation in climate politics?
I would personally like more clarity, especially working in the Youth Climate Council, having meetings with the climate minister, because after the meetings, we don't really know what happens. We don't know how much he has actually listened, or if he's just, out of in one ear, out of the other. I don't know the expression in English, but yeah. If he actually listens, so I want more like transparency and also clarity that they actually want to listen to the youth and not just say it because they know it's the right thing to say. Because the politicians, they know, oh, it's their future, they should have a say, but it's also a bit complicated maybe. So we will just pretend that we listen to them, and that's both like greenwashing and youth washing. So I think if we could get more rid of that, we would have more clarity, and that would be very nice.
Great. I see consideration, power, diversity, opportunities.
Yes, I think one of the things that is missing, which I would want to add, is capacity. I think it is important as young people we enhance our capacity, we build capacity to understand the various topics or subject of discussion, to be able to make meaningful contributions, because it's not just about sitting at the table or being invited or being called upon, but it's about being also able to contribute, being able to give sort of an expert opinion, being able to give a clear directive on what should be done and how it should be done. Because a lot of times, young people call for the space, they are given the opportunity to be heard, and then they are unable to really speak to the issues or provide solid recommendations to address some of the challenges that we experience, because the answers are not always with the adult folks. The answers are also with us. but we need to enhance our capacity to understand the issues very clearly, to be able to make good or provide good alternatives to address the problems that we are all advocating for or, or speaking about. Yeah,
All
so
right.
I think capacity is very
Sarah?
much important.
Yes?
Yes, thank you, Margaret. I would like to add something regarding platform too, because in the Brazilian experience, under the current government, we have this data that 68% of all the councils we had for civil society participation was cut. So in this matter, I really believe we still need more spaces for young people to be able to actually participate in the government. And I would also add something that is political education, because I think this is also something we relate to the Brazilian context, but also in other places for Latin America, for example. I think the structure is made for young people to think politics are boring or that this is just for a specific public to participate and contribute, that their experiences are not worth it for sharing or contributing to the discussion. So I think we have this very important role as youth climate councils also to share how can they find the ways to participate and contribute. Is not only through the councils, we also have other types of mechanisms inside our democracy to do that. And I believe that sharing those types of information is also a powerful tool for us to empower young people to understand that they can also be representatives in this political scenario.
All right. Okay, I'll see briefly.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on. I think it's very funny, actually, the things we experience as like problems in our councils right now is also the same things I see here at COP, like how to influence the negotiations here. So we lack platforms. We don't have a seat at the table. We don't have enough capacity building to make us understand these negotiations, and we are not sure if when we say something, if there's no clarity if they actually listen or not. So I think it's just funny to think about. It's very universal in some way.
It's good to know that we agree with some of the comments that our participants are even saying, because we're all the youth and we experience whatever is going on. We have a question here. Is there any success story of the youth climate councils in your respective countries? And how have these success stories inspired youth in different countries to organize their own youth climate councils in their respective nations? So maybe Cassia, you mentioned that a Danish person spoke to you, a Polish, to, so maybe you can just talk about how it has inspired you in a different country to organize your own youth climate council. Maybe someone else can talk about the very first question.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you very much for this question. And I think it's also about the inspiration, because in 2019, I talked to Danish UN youth delegates about how they actually make sure that the youth is part of decision making. And they said, it's funny because in 2018, during COP in Poland, we talked to the Danish minister. We asked him if it's possible to establish a youth climate council, and he said it on live TV, and unfortunately he didn't have any other choice than to say yes, because it was already recorded, and then he was held accountable, and they had to proceed, and there was a success story in Denmark. And when I heard this story, I thought that it would be amazing to have on the streets, because there was also Greta movement on the streets from March 2019 going on. There had been really hundreds of thousands of young people in Poland on the streets demanding action, and I realized there is really no bridge between young people and decision makers. And because there have been so many events that Poland was participating due to its UNFCCC presidency, and I also had the pleasure to be there through Yango, for example, I realized there are no young people. So there are two different realities. There is one reality in Poland where there is a huge, really unrealistically huge youth movement for climate action, and I thought that's really, really weird, because then maybe policymakers really think that we don't care. But But the reality was that we didn't have funding, that we didn't have opportunities to arrive at such events. So I talked to the COP24 president, and I proposed that we would actually have a youth representatives in the delegation who would be able to follow them and who would be able to support them also throughout all these events. And he said, no, we cannot do it because it would be really, really weird. There would be nepotism. How we would choose this person? You have to think about mechanism. And that's when I thought about Denmark, that we had this talk with the Youth Climate Council from Denmark, with the UN youth delegates, and they actually had the solution for this issue. So I told the COP24 president, okay, give me 3 months, I will prepare a concept note, and we can proceed further how we can see it, like how we can make it work in Poland. So we shared some examples. I knew how the whole platform looks like in Denmark, and I prepared very, very detailed concept note that I presented to the COP24 president. He was a former, he was a vice minister of climate back then, and he said, okay, if you can actually bring these young people from the streets to the ministry, and you can prove to the ministry that people would be interested to be institutionalized in a way, then we can proceed with legal team and the organization of the council. And we made it. There was a month later a meeting for 60 young people in the premises of the ministry. We proved that we won the council. We proved that there are examples in the world. And in the meantime, when he saw that there is a momentum, he decided to actually get in touch with Danish ministry. And as I said earlier already, they decided to share experiences also on political level, because in the EU, unfortunately, very often bureaucracy comes into place, and a lot of things are stopped because of bureaucracy. So they said, how did you, for example, deal with confidentiality? How can you make sure that young people don't spill the tea and they are not actually talking about internal ministerial things during climate strikes? And they discussed that on political level. They came back to us and they said, okay, we are ready to actually proceed on Polish level as well, on national level with the council. And it took us a year. It took us a year of lobbying, continuous cooperation, also a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, various ones, through organizational, political, financial, really, really different ones. But then after a year, also the prime minister said yes, and we were able to establish the council. But I'm 100% sure that if it wasn't for the Danish activists, there wouldn't be a council. But I think it's also important to mention if there wasn't a momentum, if there wasn't a political willingness at this specific point, it wouldn't be possible. So I think it's also important to bear in mind, also in case of the Asian Youth Climate Council example and the question, I think you have to have some kind of momentum, and you have to feel the moment, as we say in Polish. You have to actually have this moment that you can use for your own benefit.
Wow. Someone's success story was your inspiration to establish a youth climate council. And I really hope that whatever we're hearing now becomes our inspiration to also want to have the momentum, as Cassia is saying, so we can also contribute in the establishment. You may not be able to do it by yourself, but you can help research into how it could be done, so it can be an inspiration to other people who can actually make it work. All right, so our next poll, just on the slide, if you could just scan the code. We want to know how you're feeling after this session and what are going to be your next steps. How do you feel? Maybe our speakers can see a little bit briefly, maybe in a word, how you're feeling after the session. So starting with you, how do you feel? Motivated,
Yeah.
okay. How do you feel?
Yeah, I also feel more hopeful actually. It was very nice hearing Kasia's story.
Hopeful, all right. How do you feel, Darcy?
Yeah, inspired.
Inspired,
Yeah,
okay. How do you feel, Cassia?
Motivated also to join you on Saturday already. So yeah, I'm very happy.
How do you feel, Sarah?
Optimistic, very optimistic. Hearing everyone's story,
Optimistic.
but also seeing how we can cooperate and improve together.
Our participants, if anyone can say, how do you feel? Anyone? Someone says uncertain and unsure. Amazed, okay. Someone's next step is how to join the YCC. I think our next session on Thursday would help with that. Hopeful, all right. Impressed. It's good to hear. Inspired. That's wonderful.
Can I say something? I also feel like a very good feeling right now of like us being together, the youth, is like a collective, so it's not an individual fight, but we're in this together, and that's very nice feeling.
Solidarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Positive. Great. More feelings, people. Bring in more feelings.
Maybe also, on the other hand, a bit stressed how we can keep the momentum if we are successful in the Youth Climate Council Global Alliance, and we already have this wonderful 5 councils, how we can support other countries, how we can actually make sure that young people have these platforms in their countries. So it's also like if we could be of any help, as Elise said, if you would need help, if you would need some like instructions or maybe some feedback on how to use this momentum in your community, get in touch with us, and you can either contact us. If you are joining online, you can contact us through our profiles, or if you are in person in Egypt, talk to our colleagues. They will be more than happy probably to to also respond to your questions.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Feel free to approach anyone in Egypt there, but also us online. You can see us via the website that one of my colleagues on stage can share with you. And we are more than willing to help you, especially next week's Thursday, where we'll give a step-by-step plan of how we can help others in the future to do the same.
All right, so we just have barely 3 minutes more. Just a little take home for everybody. This has been an event by the Youth Climate Council Global Alliance, and this basically has been one to help us understand the meaningful youth participation in Europe and beyond. That's because as individual countries, we identified that in ourselves, we were struggling in terms of trying to make impact as youth, trying to make things work as youth, trying to make our voices heard as youth. So how do we make sure that we come together as one body and bring our voices together as one, formidable force that no one can, refuse or turn us down? And so the Youth Climate Council was birthed in countries, some as inspirations for the others. And as we all have heard, we've all been inspired. Our individual countries have been inspired. Those represented, having council represented in their countries, have been inspired, knowing that it's possible, actually. There are success stories. This is not more like a facade. This is not a hearsay. This is something that is really happening. And I'm a testimony because I am part of the Youth Climate Council Ghana, and a lot of things was happening in Ghana that was not happening before. We're not having the youth having that power or that confidence to approach the government with policy inputs. We didn't have the youth being approached to even give policy input. But with the Youth Climate Council Ghana, we have now the government stakeholders coming to the Youth Climate Council to ask for policy inputs, where you have some inputs made of varied views, not just one youth or two youth, but various youth organizations. And I would say the government has actually benefited from the Youth Climate Council, because then you can get various policy inputs rather than just having a coalition of, let's say, energy experts or a coalition of water experts, but you have everybody together. And I'd say that has been something that's really been good for my country. And from other countries, I also get the feel that you've had that sense of solidarity and collaboration and synergy. And as much as you're aspiring to be independent, I really hope that the government in your countries will identify the need to support you from afar and not to man or handle whatever you're doing. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm Margaret Imprim, and I have been your moderator. Thank you so much, Cassia. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Elise. And thank you, Richard. You guys have been lovely speakers. And thank you to the European Union for this lovely session. Thank you and have a good night.